Whether you own a VR headset or not, if you are interested in virtual reality at all, I'm sure that you have heard of BONEWORKS, a game developed by Stress Level Zero, you know, the one all over Node videos with the mechanical HMD head crabs and the crowbar and all the crazy physics. And information regarding this game is spread thinly between Discord servers, YouTube videos across a few different channels, and maybe a couple of interviews, so I've scrubbed through everything I could find to put together something of a list of things that Stress Level Zero has confirmed about their game. Quick little disclaimer though, this game isn't out yet obviously, so any of this information is subject to change. Well, let's start off with the lore. I want to be totally clear about one thing regarding BONEWORKS lore and the story. BONEWORKS is not just a tech demo. Over and over, the developers have mentioned that this is not just a small experience, and this is a full game with a story behind it and a fleshed out universe. Of course, until we get the game in hand, we won't know how long that story is, but Stress Level Zero has a history of creating games that are meant to be enjoyed more than once, like with Duck Season and the variety of endings available. So what do we know about the actual lore? Well, Monogon Industries is the main company that we've seen mentioned over and over. They are apparently the company that you either work for or are subcontracted to work for to debug their operating system. Mythos or MythOS, and that's where things get interesting. Mythos is a crazy advanced operating system developed by Monogon but is generated by artificial intelligence. It also so happens that Omens VR, Monogon's proprietary VR headset, also runs on this operating system. Now, we've seen the crazy things that can happen when AI run an entire universe that humans live in, like with Tron Legacy. Now, it appears that Mythos isn't just an operating system akin to Windows or Linux, but an entire world created for people to live in VR. Now, that's kind of a cool commentary on what people want in VR, because I know I for sure would be all about that, but maybe just not in this universe, however, because something goes horribly wrong. At least from what we know, this factory, which is also generated by the AI, is under a quarantine investigation. Now, in real life, quarantines are almost never a good thing. It means that there's a dangerous pathogen or some sort of localized problem that has become so dangerous that the only resort is to completely shut down the area from anything coming in or out. Now you have to take that same thing and put that into an AI-generated universe, and that is absolutely terrifying. Technically, anything could be lurking in this factory, and apparently you are sent to debug whatever problem has occurred. And that's where you run into these things. They look like head crabs, but are a freaking VR headset with legs trying to pull you into the next level of VR. Essentially, virtual reality within virtual reality, and turn you into what is called a VR junkie.
It's like a really intense VR headset. It's my headset with this headset.
That's what he was trying to do to you.
Oh, he was trying to do that? I don't want to do that then.
You're playing a VR game within a VR game, and the VR game only wants to further immerse you, right?
These VR junkies are pretty much VR users controlled by a crablet, that HMD head crab thing, or their Omens VR headset themselves. And it seems that there are basically two ways to become a VR junkie. Either be unlucky enough to have a head crab jump on and attach itself to your face, or become one of the very lucky few to be in Mythos, that VR operating system that we talked about before, and become so addicted to the virtual reality within Mythos that you lose all sense of time and awareness of the actual reality. And that's part of what your job is here. You are sent to debug Mythos and fix something wrong with the clock. That still doesn't explain why there are freaking killer VR headsets trying to take over your body though, which leads me to think that there's something more nefarious going on here. There's also what looks to be some sort of friendly AI, or at the very least a non-directly hostile AI that has popped up multiple times referring to you as son. All in all, the story setup sounds amazing, and while that is pretty much all we know about it, that's confirmed at least, that is one hell of a setup if you ask me. Also, might I mention, watermelons are illegal in the BONEWORKS universe, but more on that in just a bit. Next, we'll go into enemies and characters. Of course, we have talked about the crablets, the killer HMDs, and the VR junkies that crablets are apparently turning users into, but there's also another enemy type called a null body. At first I thought these were the real zombies of the world, but turns out they're just models created or at least utilized by the AI. They pretty much run at you frantically and swing their wireframe limbs around. They look like mindless obstacles, and just a bit of speculation here, I'm guessing that the AI took these models created by Monogon and gave them some sort of hostile properties to impede your progress. But of course, that is just my assumption and not confirmed info. One enemy type that is confirmed, however, is this thing called a boss claw. Now, what its purpose is or why it's doing what it's doing is still unknown, but it is something created by Monogon and not necessarily the AI. It seems to be following the player around and either trying to transport the player somewhere or kill it using, physics. Now onto this talking head that we've seen. That is the AI character that I referred to earlier, the one calling you son, which has to be important in some way. This character has been given the name Brett, but that isn't necessarily 100% confirmed. Now let's take a quick look at the weapons, because there are actually quite a bit of them. Instead of picking and choosing the cool ones, I'll just list every weapon that we've seen so far. For guns, there's a 1911, there's an MK18, an automatic rifle that looks a lot like an M4 or AR-15, but in the universe apparently has a different caliber than the real life one. The M870, which is an obvious reference to the Remington 870, a legendary shotgun for duck hunting in real life, which is actually where this gun comes from. Stress Level Zero's Duck Season uses the same or at least very similar shotgun model. There's also an Uzi, MP5, and of course the balloon gun that we've seen. Non-gun weapons so far range from a kunai knife to baseball bat, claymore, axe, crowbar, a pipe, spear, sledgehammer, and a wrench. More will be added in the future, I'm sure, but that's just what we've seen. And now one of my favorite things that developers throw into games, and that is Easter eggs. Little references to other games or pop culture or even the developers themselves. And if you get the reference, it really adds a level of coolness to the whole experience. If you haven't played Stress Level Zero's previous game, Duck Season, I would highly recommend it because so far there have been enough references to make me think that 1, it's either worth buying and playing so that you understand the references, or that the universes are in some way connected. But hey, that's just a theory. I'm not going there. I may actually make a video on BONEWORKS theories as well, because holy moly, these theories go pretty deep. Anyways, the first reference that we have is the cat clock from Duck Season. Considering that there are clock issues to begin with,
There's OS to essentially debug the clock. There's stuff going on with the clock.
and the clock itself was a big point within Duck Season, this kind of deserves its own little video. And next we have the monkey, a toy also seen in Duck Season. And finally, an interesting little piece of lore was given on the Stress Level Zero's Discord. This is an object known as Spoiler Trashmelon. Beware, this is a spoiler as the name entails, but there is a level in the game that you have to traverse through some illegal watermelon growing facility or farm of some type. And yes, that's right, watermelons are actually illegal to grow within Mythos, at least illegal to grow without a permit. Well, that's just about everything we know about BONEWORKS and just some of the basic stuff like lore and the weapons and enemies, at least at the time of recording this video. Do you want me to make more BONEWORKS content? Maybe have a video covering all of the interesting theories regarding the lore? Well, make sure to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of it, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.